At that time, on the third day, there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus also was invited to the wedding with his disciples. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." Mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now, there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." They filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." So they took it. When the master of the feast tasted the water, now become wine, they did not know where it came from. So the servants who had drawn the water knew. The master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and when people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee, and manifested his glory. And his disciples believed in him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, you know, my parents immigrated from the Netherlands to the United States, to the state of Wisconsin. My mother's 2 brothers went to southern Ontario in Canada. And each of my mother's 2 brothers was the godfather, and their wives, the godmother of me and my brother. So every summer we would have a car trip from Wisconsin to southern Ontario. It was a 16-hour trip. So we would have to leave early in the morning. My mother, the day before, would make all the sandwiches and prepare everything for the food on the journey, because it was too expensive to buy food at restaurants. And so we got into the Rambler, the 1962 Rambler car, and we prepared for that long journey. For me and my brother, little kids, it seemed like a very, very long time, 16 hours. So we played games in the car, we played cards, we counted cows, we counted people, we sang 100 bottles of beer on the wall, even though my mother thought that was a horribly silly song and told us not to sing it. And then in the afternoon, when it was getting hot, our father treated us. Dad treated us to something that otherwise we never had, a soft drink, because there was no air conditioning in the car. They didn't have AC in those days in the cars. And so when we stopped at the gas station, at the petrol station, in those days there was no convenience stores attached to the petrol station in the 1960s, but there was a vending machine. And there my dad gave my brother and I each a quarter so that we could buy a soft drink. We put the quarter in the machine, we open up the door, and we take out a bottle. And I would always look for the orange drink. Hopefully it was Orange Crush, which I really liked, even better than Fanta. And then I would taste that cold Orange Crush, that sweetness, and feel the bubbles into my nose. It was wonderful, And so, you know how children have fantasies. And one of my fantasies was that when we got home on in those horribly hot summer days, our houses did not have AC either, then my fantasy was that at the kitchen sink, not only would there be a faucet for hot water and cold water, but there would be a faucet for nice, ice-cold orange crust. The Jewish people, as they waited for the Messiah, also dreamed that when the Messiah came, there would be abundance. Abundance. So when Jesus turned the water into the wine, the apostles his disciples would have thought of the prophets like Isaiah, who prophesied in chapter 25, "On this mountain the Lord Almighty will prepare a feast of rich food for all peoples and a banquet of aged wine, the best of meats and the finest of wines." So when Jesus made wine out of water, vintage wine, the best of wine out of water, they would have thought, oh, the Messiah has come, and they believed in him. And so the first sign in the Gospel of St. John, first of 7 signs, is much more than Jesus making people happy at a wedding party or avoiding the embarrassment of running out of wine. Though it is important to remember that Jesus does operate in the ordinary events of our lives. It is even more than Jesus trying to stay out of trouble with his Mama Mary, That we also should remember what Mary said to us, do whatever he tells you. About something deeper, on a deeper level, who Jesus is, the Messiah. The Messiah brings an abundance of joy and grace and spirit. After all, Jesus makes way too much wine. These 30 gallons and these six jars, that's 180 gallons. That's about 900 bottles of wine, of good wine. Jesus is reminding us that in God's kingdom, inaugurated by him, the Messiah, there is more than enough to go around. So that anyone who wants to drink of God's goodness will be able to drink to their fill. This miraculous sign from Jesus allows the party to continue. He turns people's embarrassment into joy, their worry into wonder. Dream of abundance. Jesus brings us abundance. Many years later, and many cars later, when I was a university student, my Dutch cousin, was getting married to a Polish girl, and the wedding was in Poland the day after Christmas. My parents couldn't get vacation, and so they asked me if I would go to the wedding. And I was on Christmas break, so I could go. So I went to the Netherlands, and we got 2 Volkswagen, now we would call them minivans, and 20 of us, 19 Dutch people and this one American, traveled about 25 hours crossing West Germany, communist East Germany, and then into communist Poland. This was December 1983. That journey is a story for another homily. But at the wedding was all night long of my cousin and his bride, Christina. And every hour and a half, they brought more food out on the tables. And not wine, but every hour and a half with the food, they brought new bottles of vodka out on the table. I said, wow, where did all this come from? These are poor people living under communism. It was a sign of abundance, a sign of the covenant of marriage, which is a sign of God's covenant. Jesus is the bride, and the church, we are his people. He is the groom, and we are the bride. In a covenant, as in marriage, I am yours and you are mine. We are God's. God's is ours. God gave everything to us. Jesus Christ gave everything to us. And so we are called in covenant to give everything to him. And in that covenant relationship, the kingdom of God shines forth, a kingdom of abundance with enough for everybody. And with fullness of graces and the fullness of the gifts of the Spirit, so the kingdom of God can rule in the hearts of all people. So the abundance of wine is a sign of God's covenant with us. Sometimes in our lives, the wine of the covenant, the wine of the kingdom runs short. In our family life, the wine of joy and unity and fellowship sometimes runs short. In our prayer life, the wine of faith and perseverance runs short. In our social life with our friends, sometimes the wine of sensitivity and responsiveness runs short. In our married life, my religious life, my priestly life, sometimes the wine of joy and commitment seems to be running short. Jesus is reminding us that in God's kingdom, the plain water of our lives can be transformed into something better when He is present and we allow His action to take place in our life. When we live the covenant and know and are conscious in every aspect of our being that He gave everything for us and He wants us to give everything for Him, then there's an abundance of joy and grace and spirit, enough for everyone. Something new breaks out. Joy and life, abundance of life, what we truly long for.